Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Service Leaders Network Whirlpool Roundtable. You will all be muted, but if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can. From Whirlpool, we have Mark Perriman. I'm going to turn it over to Mark and let him go on with the presentation. Mark?
All right, thank you, Ron, and thank you, Nationwide, for hosting us here this afternoon. Very excited to kind of spending some time with you guys. I'm the Senior Manager of Field Service for Whirlpool, and with me here today, I have Chuck Newton, who's the Regional Manager for the East Side, and then Steve Owens, who is the Regional Manager for the West Side. So we'll kind of be tag teaming today. We'll kick it off with a short presentation, just kind of highlighting and going over a couple items here, and then we can definitely get into a Q&A session from there. So let me share my screen. I may need your help with this one because it does say I'm not able to share my screen.
Try that again now.
All right. All right, so from an agenda perspective here on this presentation and this afternoon, I just wanted to kind of quickly talk about part availability and just some things that we've been kind of working on in that space. Also wanted to touch on recruiting, wanted to touch on training, our service tools, and then I know this kind of comes up as well with just claim submission, escalations, and wanted to share a couple just tips and tricks, at least, of some of the things that we kind of see happening the most. Hopefully that can kind of help you out as well. And then we can get into Q&A as well from you guys' end. So overall, from a parts perspective, we are seeing parts density improve on our end from what we've kind of seen over the last couple of years. But I also want to acknowledge that, we're definitely not where we need to be from a parts perspective. So it is something that we're still continuously kind of taking a look at. But at least from an update side of things, I wanted to just kind of let you guys know that on our top 2K specifically, what we have really worked on quite significantly over the last couple of months is making sure that we have a good refresh list that actually takes in the voice of the customer. So typically in the past, and even like pre-pandemic, we typically kind of stocked the PDs with the top 2K parts, but it was mostly kind of looked at from a sales perspective side of things. And again, part availability wasn't really that much of an issue at that time, so it didn't really have that big of an effect. Now that we've kind of gone through a pandemic and supply chain constraints, making sure that we have the right top 2K is obviously very important to getting the part fast and getting that first call complete. So what we've really kind of done is worked with our PDs here over the last couple of months to make sure that the top 2K that they're kind of stocking really is focusing on those warranty calls and making sure that those parts for the warranty call specifically is taken into account. In addition to that, we also look at what are the most requested X parts, which is basically, when the part is not available at the PDs and we're looking at playing fields or it's maybe not available at all, like what are those parts, and making sure that we kind of build up our inventory and making sure that the PD network has that as well. And then, obviously from a brand perspective, looking at Genair specifically, again, also making sure that we have our top Genair parts as part of that top 2K. So we're really hoping that will create a better list and a better stocking at our PDs for what will actually be needed for warranty. So how are we measuring? Obviously, we work very closely with our PDs to make sure that they have the proper stocking levels at our hubs and the branches as well. So from a target side of things, we're looking at 95% at the hubs and 75% at the branches. We're not at those numbers. At the hub level, we're hovering around the 80s, and branches is a little bit lower. So again, like I said, we still have a ways to go, but we're consistently kind of working with them. Also wanted to kind of, in the parts arena, provide you with an update on compressors specifically. So there's been a couple of service pointers on this kind of going out as well. And I'm sure that, over the summer, you've kind of felt it as well, in terms of the refrigeration issues that were there, and just kind of compressor availability issues. So glad to report that on our side at this point that we're out of back orders, and that we do have inventory readily available in Plainfield, our parts warehouse. We are in the process. We've been doing this now for, I would say, like the past 3 weeks, and will be for the coming future. We're shipping at about 1,000 plus compressors a week out to the PDs to make sure that they have the proper inventory. So you should definitely see a difference here if you haven't felt that already. Also wanted to kind of highlight if there are any export orders that are placed with the trade care team. Again, sometimes we kind of see some of those come in where there's the compressor and then also kind of the lock ring fittings going along with that are needed. And at this point, right, since we're trying to kind of take care of the consumer, if we do run into availability issues on the lock ring fitting specifically, that we plan on at least shipping the compressor out without the fittings. So we can maybe kind of look at an alternate repair and get the consumer taken care of. And kind of talking about that repair as well, right? So from an R600 perspective, you guys kind of know as well that from a Whirlpool OEM side of things, that we absolutely recommend lock ring as the recommended option. But for these compressors repair as well, we are allowing brazing in these cases as well. And we do have videos available on Service Matters that recently got posted that also kind of talks through kind of both methods and how to kind of work through that. And then finally, on compressors as well, you may have seen this. We've definitely gotten feedback from our providers and from our network that there was some damage happening with compressors specifically around the packaging and around how it shipped. Seemed to have been happening very sporadically. But the feedback we've received and the pictures and the data related to that has really kind of helped us. And we've been able to work with our suppliers to add additional packaging and better packaging to the top of the compressor so that it stays more in place during shipment. So moving on from parts to recruiting, I wanted to kind of highlight Career Plug here because we've recently been able to enter into an agreement with Career Plug. I'll kind of talk a little bit about them here. You may be already familiar with them, but they're really a company that is specifically kind of focused on packaging everything kind of neatly and helping providers out, and they go across industries as you kind of see on the screen, but really making the recruiting process a little bit more easier. As you guys know, like it's sometimes very hard to kind of find good technicians, and even maybe going out to the office staff as well. It could be a cumbersome process, and so Career Plug is really kind of honing in on like how do we kind of make this process a little bit better for the company involved. So essentially how they're kind of working is they kind of package it all together to where you can really create your job postings, your templates, again, whether it's for technicians, whether it's for your office staff, but their website allows it to kind of create those job templates that you can post very quickly. But the big benefit really that we're kind of seeing with Career Plug is, typically, companies kind of partner up with a specific recruiting company like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or something, right? And they all kind of have their unique fees associated with that. with Career Plug, it really kind of brings that all together. And so when you do a posting, it posts it to all these websites all at the same time. So you have a little bit more of a wider net essentially that you're kind of casting, which is very beneficial. But from there as well, Career Plug, that website allows you to pre-qualify applicants. You can put in pre-qualifying checklist or questions that they need answered prior to applying. You can schedule interviews through their website, and then kind of do the evaluation piece. So it is a neat tool. We've been piloting this with a couple of our providers on our side as well within our network, and seen good results as well. So wanted to at least kind of bring it up here in this forum, if this is something that you're interested in. So again, this is definitely like no obligation whatsoever. But if you want, I do have a QR code there, and I can definitely share this after the roundtable here as well, for the form to kind of fill out. But you would essentially have kind of 30 days free trial to kind of check it out and see if you like it. And then again, no obligation if you don't want to go afterwards and then continue. But if not, we do have through Whirlpool a discounted rate for the year of $595. So again, if you kind of think about some of the fees that individual providers have, like Indeed or something, you can kind of do the comparison there and see if it's beneficial to check this out or not. All right, moving on to training. So wanted to just kind of highlight as well some of our training here and competency development that we're kind of offering, and wanted to at least kind of talk here about the tech learning path and how Whirlpool can kind of help out with that. So as you're bringing in new technicians into your company, or even just look at continued education for existing techs, again, that's where Whirlpool can kind of offer different courses through Service Matters University. We have over 40 courses that are available. And obviously, there's a lot of technical pieces in it, right? Like kind of how we repair appliances. But we also have courses that focus on more that emotional piece as well. Like how do we approach a consumer into a home? How do we work through that call? How do we close the call? So we have some courses that relate to that as well. And again, we have kind of two levels, basic level that kind of focuses on laundry, cooking, customer service. But then there are proficient levels as well that are being offered that kind of continued on expansive learning in those categories, as well as like refrigeration. So from there, new techs can then kind of apply to what they've learned through those courses. And then we also have hands-on labs that are available. And then ultimately, we also have to kind of close out those courses, then field assessments that can be run so that you can feel comfortable with what they've learned, and kind of looking at that assessment to make sure that they feel comfortable and feel appropriately trained to go out solo in the field. So again, just as an overall resources that we have available, right? So obviously you guys are familiar with Service Matters. If you don't have the app, obviously, kind of download that. There's a lot of resources that are available there to technicians. Besides the technical documents, obviously interactive tools and repair videos are available there as well. But then, as I kind of alluded to with our competency model, right? So we have our basic competency model, and then our proficient, more advanced competency model as well. The big thing here that we have kind of changed over this year, before we really kind of packaged it all together, as when you go through the basic training, you have all these courses that are there, and if you go through proficient, you have all the courses that are there. Again, based off feedback this year, we did change it a little bit more to where you could still do that. We also have more a la carte courses available. So if you only want your tech to learn laundry or if you want to focus them specifically on cooking or something, then you can actually take that package specifically without taking all the other courses. And then again, from a training perspective as well, right? We do have virtual trainings available as well as hands-on training. And here on the next page, I can provide just a little bit more info on that as well. So I wanted to kind of highlight from a training side, first, I guess, Appliance Fix Live. This summer, we actually celebrated our 1-year anniversary. And we are seeing great participation and great success with Appliance Fix Live. So if you haven't checked that out, or if your technicians are not aware of it, I would highly recommend it. We typically, the timing usually kind of gets communicated through our communications each month. And we have 2 times as well, kind of when we hold it to kind of accommodate East and West Coast timeline there. But the team really does a phenomenal job kind of touching on different subjects and kind of trying to balance that in how deep they kind of go from a repair perspective. It is really nice to kind of see the technicians really kind of chatting and asking live questions when this is going on. So I think that's where, again, that the team really gets a lot of benefit out of the program that's being offered there. But again, it's always recorded, and those recordings are available on Service Matters if there's a topic that got missed or something in the past. So upcoming for that in November, the focus will be on cooking, and then in December will be refrigeration. We do have our Q4 virtual training starting next month. So be on the lookout for that. And then from a hands-on training for the fall, we had that ongoing now as well. I believe those communications went out. So if you want to take advantage of that, as you can see from the map there, we have multiple locations available where that's being offered. So make sure you take advantage of that for sure. All right, moving on to our service tool. I wanted to kind of highlight this as well because we are making some improvements and advancements on this side as well. So we rolled this out officially, I believe, last year from a network perspective. And again, I know you guys from other OEMs as well are familiar with kind of service tool and how it kind of operates. So won't go into too much detail on that. However, I do still want to kind of highlight the benefits, right, that kind of come along with the service tool. Again, updating that software is going to be very key and can often can kind of create a first call complete resolution, which is very critical to you guys from a cost perspective, but from a consumer perspective as well. They obviously appreciate it as well if we can kind of resolve it, especially without changing parts. So just to kind of think about that, right? Like why should I invest in this? Again, you won't have to replace control boards. You won't have to kind of incur those core charges that kind of come along with that. And even from a speed of resolution perspective, right? It reduces the time in home. And like I said, increases the first call complete. So definitely worth kind of investing and looking at this. The piece I really wanted to kind of highlight that we've been working on over this past year is specifically on the app improvements. So the app that kind of connects together with the tool, was a little bit on the basic side. So we were able to obviously implement new software updates and file updates to get the latest software on the control boards. But we've really kind of worked on the app developments here, and those will be rolled out here over the next month. So what those additions are is, once the app kind of updates, as a technician, you'll be able to have more abilities, such as looking at error codes that the appliance had and kind of seeing what those specifically are. And then coming along with that, having step-by-step diagnostics instructions in how to kind of address those with root cause analysis. You also have the ability with the app specifically to run a full automated test, making sure that the appliance kind of progresses through all the steps. But you also will have the ability to really kind of test very specific functional components. So I think that will be a great improvement as well. And then obviously we're kind of tying this in with Service Matters and Service Bench as well. So I think from a usability perspective, the app will be a great improvement. And again, that's going to be then applicable for any other appliances that we have on the horizon to apply the service tool to. So for the moment, this is primarily available in the laundry side, but we also have a dish coming out, and then certain refrigeration platforms as well. And then cooking won't be far behind that. So we're actively definitely investing in this technology. So just in case you were wondering, how would I purchase a service tool? So for that, just go to the Service Matters website, and then under the resources tab, there will be a link there that goes to a uniform order site. And then once you go in there, you will be able to kind of see where you can purchase the service tool. All right, so kind of rounding it out here from the topics that I wanted to kind of cover is just some claim submission tips and tricks. So, and again, you may already be doing this, but in case you do have questions, or these are things that you've been kind of wondering about, from our side, definitely before or during the service call as you're running it. Just make sure that you always check entitlement, that you check the warranty for each appliance, kind of regardless of what the payment type is, on the service job. It's a really critical step, because then you can feel assured that once you check the warranty documents, that you kind of know whether it's in and out of warranty, whether you need to charge the customer, not charge the customer. So that you don't run into any issues when you end up filing the claim. As a best practice, again, this is just kind of something that we highlight, but for your technicians, it would be good to kind of get in the practice of taking a picture of the model serial tag, just in case, when it comes to claim submission or something, if there is a typo, then at least you have something that you can kind of go back to and make sure that, something didn't get mistyped. For the actual claim submission, after the service call, if you do run into a situation where a claim is rejected, make sure that when you go into the rejected claim, that you save it as a new claim after you correct the information and then resubmit it. So just kind of be aware of that step. Also, if you're escalating a claim, make sure that you hit send on the escalation. If not, essentially what will happen is, the escalation is just going to stay in saved status, and it won't be escalated essentially. So just kind of be aware, on the lookout of that. If you do escalate a claim, make sure that you hit send on that. And then just as a reminder, so you do have 45 days from completion of the job to submit a claim. If there is a rejection, then you have 30 days from that rejection to correct it and then resubmit. And then another one that we're kind of seeing frequently sometimes as well is if parts are being used, make sure that those parts are listed on the parts line within the claim. So sometimes we kind of see that, the mentioning of parts got listed in the technician notes, and then that gets just submitted as is for a claim. So that could be a reason why the claim is then rejected and kind of kicked out. So if you are using parts, just make sure it's okay if they're in the tech notes, but they also need to be in the parts line specifically. So with that, that was a little bit of the material that at least I wanted to kind of cover with you guys here. I hope you guys found it useful. I will stop sharing my screen, and we can go over to some Q&A.
And Mark, we've got a couple questions in the chat too, if you want to take a peek at those.
Okay, yep. So first one was a question from Ron on around R600 and that being flammable. So Chuck or Steve, do you guys want to maybe address that question?
Yeah, I can, Ron. It is true that it is flammable. However, we have investigated and found a process whereby you can successfully braise. There are some precautions that still need to be made. We're purging the refrigerant with nitrogen. So you want to make sure you go into Service Matters and view that video that actually shows the procedure. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out to your field service manager and we can engage the training team if needed, but that is in there to provide those instructions on how to safely do that. It's a great question.
All right, thanks, Steve. And then we did have a question around, when a part is being sent to X-Parts, being told you have about 4 to 5 weeks to find the part. Is there any plans to kind of streamline this? The customer is not happy with this at all. So I wish I could kind of reply to that as well in terms of the compressor specifically, that we're kind of getting out of X-Part on the compressor side at least and moving that into our PD network. But I will kind of talk about the X-Parts process here a little bit in more detail. So yeah, obviously, it is not a good timeline, and for us as well, like the X-Part process is an exception process. It is not what we want to have as a norm, nor is it really what we want to kind of drive as a consumer experience. So that's why on our end specifically, there are more actions related to figuring out like what are the parts that are driving X-Parts specifically, and then how can we work with our suppliers to increase the quantities of parts that we're procuring so that we have the depth to stock them not only at Plainfield, but then also in our PDs. We want to, before kind of the pandemic, I'm sure you guys are aware of that as well. It was still an exception process, but a little bit more of an easier process to kind of work the customer through. And so that is still our focus, is how can we get back to that timeline that existed at that point in time. I also see that Mark posted some information on Service Matters. So thanks, Mark, for kind of putting that out there as well. And that will be kind of highlighted as well in the trade show. So yeah, absolutely kind of visit the Whirlpool booth and just kind of gets a little bit more information on that as well. All right, and then most recent question here is when functional parts are on back order for more than 7 days, then what is the policy or the process to compensate the consumer? Chuck, you want to maybe take that one? Chuck, if you are talking, we cannot hear you. If not, I can kind of.
He's muted, Mark.
Gotcha. I could kind of take it then. So again, if parts are on back order, we do have toolkits that are available at our call center that the call agents have access to and can use. And it is very much situational. So it is a holistic toolkit, but there's a lot that kind of goes into that depending on what the product is, depending on what the brand is, depending on how serious the situation is, the age of the product, So there's a lot of factors that we're kind of considering in that space, and that can kind of then depend on also what the outcome is, right? So I think from that sense, you know, it's we just kind of have different ways that can range anywhere from compensation for certain things to reimbursements to you know, in worst cases, you know, exchanges or buybacks that we're kind of considering. So those are all kind of factors that we're kind of taking into account. I would say, you know, if parts, you know, are not available, you know, I would kind of maybe highlight that as well as a best practice, making sure that we call or email the trade care team so that we can kind of kick off that search for that part as quickly as possible. So, you know, if you're typically kind of looking at the PD and then, you know, not finding that inventory that you're looking for, I know you have the ability to kind of place a back order with them, but that may not, you know, fully kind of get us to all the actions that we potentially kind of could take with that part. So I know submitting an X parts, you know, we kind of talked about the timeline here as well. It is definitely not the most friendly process, but it is a fairly successful process actually in terms of finding the part. And just to kind of provide a little bit more visibility to just kind of what they look at, right? So when they do receive an X part request in, they obviously look at, you know, Plainfield, like do we have the part available at Plainfield in our pack house that we can kind of pull in and ship out. They also look at our manufacturing plants, like are we able to kind of take it from the assembly line and then use it as a part to kind of ship out for service. So those are options as well that they look at. But then they also have visibility to all our PDs, right? So we do have a whole network of PDs, and typically from a service provider perspective, you know, you mostly have relations with 1 to maybe 3 PDs, you know, that you kind of have accounts with. So that's another ability that Expart kind of has, is it has a wider net that they kind of look at from a PD perspective to see if we can buy that part back from them and then ship it out to the consumer.
Mark, another question came in. What assistance does Whirlpool offer to obtain a part outside of the normal parts distributors?
Yeah, so we typically do kind of, if we're talking specifically about our parts distributors, we typically do kind of stick with them just because of the relationship. Once you go outside of that, that's kind of when you start risking getting into you know, non-authorized parts or non-genuine parts, and so that risk, you know, definitely kind of increases, which we're very, very cautious about. So we like to kind of stick with authorized PDs that we have because we know what we ship them. And then again, we have the ability to kind of look further like backwards into our supply chain from a manufacturing plant perspective, seeing if we can get the part there or from our suppliers.
Just to kind of add to that, Mark, one other tool that the Expart team would have at their disposal would be actually going to the vendor we buy the part from to possibly procure it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And just one other action we took that I think was pretty significant is we went back and looked at our vendors. We've added additional vendors to make sure we have more options and more availability on parts as well. So that kind of gets at that issue as well. Just trying to make sure we're having as many avenues and tools as possible to acquire those parts.
All right. Kind of looking at the next question here, like with the use of the service tool expanding, is there any plans on lowering the price? So for now, I think that the price still kind of remains as what it is. I think it's something that we can obviously kind of take a look at in the future. But for now, yeah, we don't have plans to change the pricing on that. Now, there are So I do say that there are from time to time promotions that we do run, on service tools, whether it's, certain discount, percent off or something. So when we do run those promotions, I think what we can do is make sure that at least those are aware here to the nationwide group, and make sure you guys take advantage of that as well when we do run those promotions.
Another question that came up was, how can a servicer offset the freight that is paid for warranty parts?
Yep. Steve, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I think that the key thing here is looking at where you source your parts. Obviously, if you have a PD that's closer, kind of in your backyard, that's a great option. Working with your PD, making sure that you share with them the top parts that you're using, so that those signals for inventory levels are also being considered when they're looking at their signals to stock inventory there at their local PD. That's going to be one of the best options. Outside of that, obviously looking at your own inventory, making sure that we know that's probably going to be a minimal stock, but just managing that inventory and having some of that inventory on hand. Inventories that you provide, restocking on those probably are going to be coming in LTL, more of a group of parts being sent versus singles, where you can save money there. And then quite honestly, the other option is, we're looking at freight and some of the things that are out of our control a little bit. We sometimes have to look at what other areas of the business can we look at to offset some of those costs. So driving efficiency within your organization, whether it be in the parts logistics itself or in other parts, would just be other options that we'd want to take a look at to see how we can offset those expenses so that we can maintain our margins and bottom line.
Question came up regarding warranty rates. What are the key metrics that a servicer is graded on?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So for us, when we kind of look at the network as a whole, we specifically kind of focus on the primary metrics that you guys are probably all familiar with, right? So that's looking at our 5-star and our first call complete, which is kind of administered through our voice of the customer. So that's kind of how we look at it specifically. So with every delivery or service call that's kind of happening, we end up sending a survey to the consumer, and then based off the response to that survey, in terms of how they would rate that service experience, as well as we have a question in there that talks about, how many visits to the home did it take to kind of complete that. And so it takes it more from a consumer's point of view, and that's the lens that we kind of want to manage through that. So 5-star, first call complete, but then we also obviously look at days to schedule. So how fast can we go out there, as well as days to complete, right? Like how long does it take to kind of complete the repair in total. Separately from there, I think from a provider perspective as well, like what's really important to us is, do we have full line service providers? And I think that's the piece that we, especially like this year, I think coming out of the pandemic as well, like where we're really kind of struggle a little bit more. And so I think that's the piece that we really look at is on the refrigeration side, how do we make sure that we do have full line and fully trained technicians on the seal system side, because that can drive a lot of capacity issues into our availability as well. And then the final one that we do kind of look at as well, maybe from a lesser perspective, but it's something that we do take into account, and that's just the rejection rate. So if you are set up in terms of receiving dispatches, how often do you accept those? How often do you kind of reject them? And so that's something that we look at as well.
So how can a servicer get these reports or these metrics? How can we tell how we're doing? Are they available online, or where can we see these?
Yeah, so they are available in Service Bench for most of those metrics. So specifically, the first call complete, the 5-star, days to schedule, and then days to complete. So you should be able to see in Service Bench kind of how you're performing against those metrics. We can definitely, if you're unfamiliar with that or don't quite know like where to find them, we can definitely kind of help out with that. The piece that's not in there is the rejection rate. That's separate, and so I think we can definitely help with providing more visibility around that as well.
So Mark, I would just add, you can locate the reports at Service Performance in their own individual Service Bench account.
Yep. And then I did see a question in the chat as well around instructions for the service tool. And then Chuck, I saw you responded as well that instructions for the service tool can be found on servicematters.com. There is a quick reference guide that's posted there that you could look for, and that should provide with the information that's needed.
What can a servicer do and provide the information to Whirlpool to get an equitable rate agreement? Does knowing and sharing the cost of doing business and everything help?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I think it really does come with fully understanding, like how does your process work from beginning to end, and then kind of figuring out like where we have opportunities, right? So the way I kind of look always at rate discussions or when that kind of comes up is there's typically two paths to kind of address that. Like one is we can actually throw money at it and increase the rate, right? And in some cases that is the right thing to do. But the other side of the coin is also, how do you improve the efficiency and the productivity that you kind of have, within your processes and kind of how you kind of work. So really in an ideal state, both should be kind of looked at. So as a servicer, I would definitely kind of, make sure that you have a very good understanding of, walking your processes and understanding kind of where the waste are in those processes that you can potentially kind of work on and then kind of take out, and even some opportunities where maybe Whirlpool can kind of help out as well to help take out that waste. But then once you do have a good understanding, then we definitely welcome conversations around rates. Steve, Chuck, I don't know if there's anything there additional that you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, so a couple other things. I mean, this is an individual conversation, obviously, with the service provider and your field service manager. Every company is a little bit different, volume, the market that you're in, different things like that. So all of those things are taken into account. And like Mark said, really just helping us understand your business model, your processes. We can work together to make sure that we have an equitable rate. And then also, as Mark has mentioned, if there's any opportunities for efficiency, we can help identify and work on that as well. So definitely would encourage you to reach out to your field manager and have that conversation, and just provide as much detail and information about your market, about your business model as you can. And that'll really help us with that conversation.
Good, thank you. Jeff Olson asked, he said that you struggle with door replacements. They're expensive and often require reordering. There should be a way to have them sent direct from Whirlpool and bypass the distributor. That just takes more time. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, Chuck, do you want to take this one?
Sure. In those situations, you can work with Trade Care, our Trade Care Express team, to expedite those orders or place those orders. to get them shipped. But as a practice, we do go back through our PD network. But in those cases where you're experiencing difficulties, or it's like in the situation where it's coming in damaged and you're having to order a second time, reach out to Trade Care Express. They'll work with you in obtaining the replacement door.
Good. Does your, another question coming in is your technical assistant staff, do they have the ability to connect with a technician using video chat, like an app like Visual Support?
Yeah, Steve, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I will. So that's a great question. And we did go down that path. We piloted a process where we could use a video chat capability, and then we implemented it. However, what we found is, based on the quality of the signal, whether it be Wi-Fi or phone cell signal at the location where the tech was, that was an issue. And then the other is, all of the processes where you got the customer to sign off and all that kind of stuff. We kind of looked at it and tried to find a more efficient way to be able to share pictures of what the technician's seeing and maybe what the technician is experiencing with the product. So what we've gone to here recently is more of a ability to send an SMS text, so the technician can send pictures, texting back and forth between the tech line agent and the technician so that they can show them what they're seeing. They can also send videos in that chat, so they can take a quick video snap of what's happening with the washer and then text that over. And that's proven to be much more efficient, faster for the tech, saving them time, and still, being able to accomplish the same thing, so that we can, help the technician as best we can.
What kind of technology is Whirlpool? Are they working on something where it'd be easier to and make a more accurate diagnostic tool that some manufacturers have a tool that you can hook right up and it will tell you what's going on and how to fix it. Is Whirlpool working on anything like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are. And that's what Mark mentioned about the service tool. So first iteration was more just around updating software, updating settings files, things like that. Current iterations that are being launched will have those capabilities where technicians can do more diagnostics with the tool. As we continue, the strategy and the roadmap definitely does include walking technicians through fault trees, embedding videos, things like that, showing them like, here's the part that may be needed. And maybe if they're not familiar with how to replace that part, here's a link to a video how to do that and things like that. So definitely on our roadmap to add that to the current service tool. And as Mark mentioned, that's primarily with the app. So as time goes on, that's where we'll continue to make those enhancements with the app.
Yeah, and just to add a couple more comments to that from a roadmap perspective, right? So, because currently it is, with the appliances where we have it, it's still a connection, right, that you have to make with the appliance. So we are actively working on Bluetooth connections, which will obviously be a little bit easier. That you have to at least not, take some of the appliance apart to kind of get to the connection port. So we are working on that technology as well. But the other piece that we're going down is also just from a diagnosis perspective, making sure that we kind of make more linear connections from a failure to a component that needs to be replaced. Because I think, we have some product categories where we're better than others, where, you can, basically link a specific error code to specific failure to a specific part that has to be used to kind of replace it. But then we also have certain categories where it is harder to really diagnose and kind of pinpoint, what the problem is. So on those specifically, we're really actively working to get more granular in that space, so that it makes it easier for the technicians to understand what's wrong, and then make it easier to kind of diagnose and then fix the issue.
We're coming up, getting ready to wind down. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share with our group?
So I guess, yeah, before we kind of close out on that, so just want to kind of look at one other chat here that kind of came in. Says that we have invested in one tool, but I'm afraid to purchase more, as it seems that it will be replaced by something more up to date. So yeah, on the service tool specifically, we don't have plans currently to replace it by something better, or as I kind of talked about in my presentation, I think that's really more our focus at the moment, is how do we make more investments into how you can use the tool. And so that's why we kind of went more on like, how do we add capabilities to the app specifically. So at least from a tool perspective, like we don't have any plans here to like switch to something different. I don't know if that will help you kind of put you more at least at ease, Joe, but just kind of listing out at least the direction there. So, and then Ron, I saw you kind of posted another question around customer instruction installation policy.
Yes,
Yep.
the instruction.
Yep. Chuck, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. The policy is clearly stated on the consumer's warranty and in the owner's manual. So the instruct and installation is part of the pre and purchase experience, and also the delivery is at the time of purchase. So the warranty is designed to cover any manufacturer's defects for the given period of time. So, and then I just want to back up to the question in regards to lock ring tool. Lock ring tool is a great investment. Okay. The lock ring will save you time and also some cost over a period of time. What we're referring to is with a replacement compressor, there is no refrigerant, there's no R600 in that compressor. And when you go to install it, you can safely braze external to the system, clean that system out, and then you can attach it very easily with lock rings. But we did realize that in some instances, those lock rings may not be readily accessible, and we wanted to do the best possible for the consumer that was being inconvenienced with the failure.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck, for kind of going back. As I kind of reread the question from Joe, I realized I answered the wrong thing about the service tool, when his question was really more about the lock ring specifically. So yeah, thanks for kind of correcting that. And then as well, I think the other piece I'll just kind of mention on lock ring as well. So I do think it's still a better way to kind of go to use lock ring, but as that has kind of evolved, there are also more tools on the market on the lock ring side. So more options available, cheaper options in some cases, and then even like from a size of the tool perspective, there's also better ones out there as well. So definitely still kind of check it out. I think it's still something that's very relevant.
Just remind everybody, you don't have to buy the lock ring kit. As Mark's alluding to, you can buy just the tool. And then if you buy the fittings for the job and have an invoice, those can be put on the claim.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Does that have to be all on one order?
No, individual invoices can be used. So like, I'm hope I understand the question, but let's say you decide to buy 10 lock rings on an invoice versus the kit. Yes, you can put all those on the individual items you work on as you use them with that same invoice number.
Yep. So I know we're kind of coming up here at time, so maybe just a couple of quick closing comments. I guess first of all, I really just want to kind of thank you guys for everything that you do day in, day out. I know the environment is not easy, and then from a consumer side of things as well, I know you're kind of finding yourself sometimes, and technicians as well, like in situations that where consumer patience is kind of running thin. So I don't underestimate, you know, the work that you guys have to put in to recoup, you know, a negative customer experience. And so I really just want to thank you from a Whirlpool side for giving 100% of yourself, you know, day in, day out. And we obviously, as an OEM, want to support you, you know, the best we can. I know we went through a couple things here today that I'm hoping, you know, can be helpful for you guys as well to implement or take advantage of as well. But again, if there's anything that we can additionally help you out with, we can definitely, you know, work directly, or we can work through Nationwide. But again, I really, really appreciate everything you guys do.
Okay, well, thank you, Mark, and everyone from Whirlpool for sharing this information with us. And by the way, we will be having a session tomorrow on lock ring for those of you that need some more assistance on how the lock ring works. Lock ring will be doing that tomorrow afternoon. So thank you, everybody. Don't forget the trade show to attend tonight at after all the sessions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.